Well, I'm going to put forth a proposal that may or may not be useful. It's pretty damn interesting, though. I've been reading extensively about this, and I do not think it's all in the realm of pseudoscience, or some people would downgrade this or deride it and call it New Age garbage or something. And some people are way into it. I can't say I'm really into it or not into it, but I'm fairly curious about this type of influence in the body, healing the body, or creating another outcome for the body through color light therapy. Now, this is actually, I'm going to bring out a little tidbit about possibly influencing the offspring of a child with color light therapy. Now, I don't know if people are very much familiar with this, but I'm going to get onto a couple other things, so give you a little more pause for thought, because I know there's videos out on there on YouTube where there's some guy throwing salt over his right shoulder to bring out the bad karma in the house, and shaking out pillows on the in the living room to bring out the bad karma and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not getting into all this crazy stuff. I'm trying to look at this from a rational standpoint and see if it dovetails into other things that we know are absolutely correct. But, one thing I always picked up on, and it really wasn't in any books that I've read, I know that the crown chakra is actually associated with the color purple. Like when you're looking at these colors, the chakras of the body, and also the colors, when we're looking at the colors of light that are invisible light, and when you put all these colors together, you see white light. Red is the lowest frequency, and it goes to a higher and higher frequency till you get up to the crown chakra, which is designated by the color purple. It is like the highest of our being, I guess. But what I always found interesting, and it has not really written in any books anywhere, that the color purple was always associated with the emperors of Rome. Even if the Roman emperor was out in the battlefield and he did not have all his entrapments of the office with him, he would still have a coarse cloak of the color purple. And it makes you wonder why they chose that color. But then this technology, actually, I'll call it technology, does go back very, very... I know there's the modern day technology with color light therapy maybe only goes back to the 1800s where it started. But in times past that, it's been centuries. And even when you're talking about, the Indians with the different rocks, let's say jade is for healing and things like that, it's actually the color of the rock, the stone, that they're saying it's healing stones. I kind of look at this like there's something to it. It's not total, snake oil, if you want to put it that way. There's even been a lot of things that are talked about, like we have an aurora around us, actually a field of magnetism that basically extends out in different layers from our body. And I know this is a fact because you can sense, even in the dark, and if you're trained, like say for instance you're trained in the military, you can sense in the dark the presence of people around you. And actually this even goes back into people that are trained in the martial arts. You heard about the blind swordman. He could sense where the person is. There's something going on there. They can actually sense. There's another sense that they have. Sometimes animals will have this far more than humans. They'll be able to follow the ley lines on the earth through magnetism, and actually we emit a magnetism in our body too. But they can sense the presence of something without seeing or smelling or hearing it, which by it may be magnetism that they're giving off by their aurora, whatever you want to call it. But let me just get to the cut to the chase now, if I piqued your interest a little bit, because it seems like there's a little more to this than meets the eye as far as, the skeptics say it's total garbage, but then there's people that are way into it, and I think they're crazy too, and they sell you stuff that's a lot of money and stuff. And I'm not selling anything, but I just want to drop this little tidbit here. This is something I picked up. It says animals bred under conditions of natural sunlight. Animals will produce, under those conditions, they will produce an equal number of female and male offspring. About 50-50 approximately. But if they are bred, like they did this experiment with rats and mice, they did this under pinkish fluorescent lighting, they tend to produce almost exclusively male litters. And, under Chinese philosophy, red is termed yang or male. It's also associated with, Mars, warlike sometimes, even that. Then the animals that are raised under a bluish light tend to produce almost exclusively female litters. Blue is considered a red yang or female in the Chinese system, red yin. So it's blue is considered female in the Chinese system, or a red yin versus yang. So, if you're applying this to a human, though, I know that the male is actually the one that determines the sex of the baby from the sperm. It would actually have to be that the male is under pinkish light, and if it works, that it would be that, well, I don't know, I guess the male and the female would have to, it would be under pinkish fluorescent light. You get those pinkish bathroom lights or whatever the hell it is if you want male babies, and if you want female babies, you want to be under bluish lights. I don't know if that would work, but it seems to work for the animals. And, it's like, you could say, are humans that different? Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. But, it's one of those buried tidbits that's not really told about too much. I don't know if it would really work. But I know a lot of times people are maybe interested in, like, how can I determine beforehand what the sex of the baby is going to be? And it's the exact opposite of what you would think it would be. You would think a pinkish light would produce girls and a bluish light would produce boys, but it's the other way around. But then again, you also think about what we see as light. Actually, when we look at something that's, say, pinkish or red or whatever, it's actually, that color is, what's reflecting back is every color, I think, except the red. I think that's how it works. It's the exact opposite of what you see. In other words, when a light hits an object, it absorbs every color of the spectrum. And if you see it as red, the only color that's not absorbing is the red. That's what's reflecting back to you. So I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with why it seems to be the opposite. But that's exactly how it is. Pinkish fluorescent lights will actually cause offspring to be male in animal litters that they did this experiments under, and bluish lights will cause them almost always to be exclusively female litters. If they're under natural light, it's 50-50. I don't know. I mean, there's a little more to this technology than you think, because sometimes you think of it as light, and what is light, but light is, sometimes they call light a particle, but then also light is a frequency. Now, for instance, I'm showing a picture of Royal Rife, and he used the Royal Rife microscope. He developed a Royal Rife microscope back in the 30s. And what he did was, to see objects smaller than a particle of light, he divided a particle of light and refracted it into smaller particles with prisms inside of this complicated microscope that he developed. He was actually a machinist, not a doctor, but he sure did find a lot of important medical discoveries. But what he found was, like, if a viri showed up under, like, a purplish light, that also gave him the frequency of the organism, which purple, as we looked back in here before, purple is a higher frequency. Like, if we're looking at, when we see the sunset, in, say, the sun setting in the west, and we see like a reddish hues, a reddish and orange hues, those are the longer, those are the slower frequencies. They're longer wavelengths of light. That is why they're getting through the horizon, because when you're looking at it on an angle, it's got to go through a lot more of the atmosphere. You're only seeing the reddish orange hues, the longer wavelengths of light. You're not seeing the faster wavelengths of light. When it's all combined, it looks like just plain white light. There is different frequencies within the light spectrum that we see as natural white light. The highest frequency being a purplish, then it goes down to blue, down to green, and yellow, to orange, to red. And the red being the lowest frequency of visible light. So like when Royal Rife saw microbes or viri, cancer viri, as a purplish light, you realized about what the frequency was, and he applied a radio beam frequency to it to destroy that microbe. But what I'm saying, what I'm bringing that up for is because this color light therapy, it's not just about light, it's about frequency too. Even though it's applied to the outside of the body, it's applied to the skin, it's still applying a frequency. And you know, here's something else I want to bring up, another tidbit. They found that the further you get away from the equator, like the equator has the most direct sunlight, where people are exposed to the most direct sunlight, and also has the hottest temperature, where people are mainly not bundled up in a lot of clothing like they would be, say, up in northern Canada, where it'd be very cold in, say, the fall, spring, and even winter, where they would not have a lot of skin exposed to light. They found that people in the equator, nearest to the equator, have the less incidence of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, MS, multiple sclerosis, and any type of disease, basically. And as you get further away from the equator, people have a higher incidence of all these, life debilitating or killer diseases, whether it be MS or cancer or diabetes, heart attacks, strokes. And some people theorize that it's strictly because of vitamin D, but produces that you produce in your skin, but it may also be due to the light itself that's doing more than just helping produce vitamin D. So we know that even ultraviolet light kills germs, that type of stuff too. But another thing is with Nikola Tesla, when I get back to this thing when we talk about the aurora around a person, he never really liked to shake people's hands because he felt like it was contaminating his magnetism or something. It was something really strange. And you could say the guy was a little crazy in a lot of ways, but then again, he wasn't so crazy when you think about all the stuff that we're using today, where we wouldn't be using it. I wouldn't be talking to you right now on this whatever, or you wouldn't be listening to anything, or you wouldn't be seeing anything that we have in modern day society if it wasn't for Nikola Tesla. But Nikola Tesla says that we do have a magnetism that surrounds us. Maybe this magnetism could be influenced by the shades of light too, and that affects the body and affects the healing of the body. And I've been looking into this technology, but it's something whereby, I found this little tidbit, and I said, well, I think I'm going to post this because this is pretty interesting, and I don't know if it would work because I don't know how you would really implement it in the human world. It would seem like the male and the female would have to sleep under pinkish light. I don't know if it would work. If they wanted male babies, and they would have to sleep under bluish light if they wanted female babies. I don't know if that would work, but it seems to work very well for animals. But a lot of this technology is like just totally forbidden, and it does go way back to the ancients. I talked about before where probably the pyramids were really earth generators. Like Nikola Tesla made this Wardenclyffe Tower. It was torn down. Actually, Nikola Tesla envisioned that the world would be surrounded by an energy ring, almost like on Saturn, that we could tap into anywhere in the world. He also envisioned that there was a type of, I don't know, you would call it a shower, but it was basically a type of, it was a plate that you would stand on, and it was a waterless electro shower. You would stand on a plate, and it would shake off all the microscopic dander, germs, and everything off your body, and leave your skin clean and destroy all the bad microbes in your body, and yet recharge your body's immune system and charge your body's life vitality. And it was something he developed, man. It's another technology that is just been pushed aside. Now, one of the things he developed back in the past was the I forget what you call it. It's a derivative of the Lukowski coil, and it uses a purple light. I think it's called a purple ray. I believe it was what it was called. It was pretty common back in the day, but it's still used today for cosmetic purposes to help reduce wrinkles and blemishes. So I'm going to tell you, I think this technology, there's something to it, but you really can't say, use one color of the spectrum, expect it to work all the time. Actually, if you're using, if you're applying this technology, and I'm going to tell you where I think it's the cheapest to buy. Not that I'm going to even give you a vendor, but I'm going to tell you, I think there's some extreme ripoffs out there in people that are into selling these type of products. Like they're selling you $300-$400 for like LED lights and paddles and soda instruments comes to mind. I was like, whoa, baby. But probably one of the cheapest places you can get something like this if you want to experiment with it is to go to a movie theater production website that sells lights for stage lighting. And you just buy it. And actually, I've seen some online that sell stage lighting that has the exact right filters for this color chromotherapy, and it's like, it comes with the whole thing for like a little over $150 with all the trays, and it's a quality stage light. It's not no junk, and it's going to last you many, many, many years. It's still, that would be far more powerful than a lot of stuff they sell on these alternative health websites, which I think are, to me, I think this technology should be about a $59, technology. Some filters and incandescent bulb that's a full spectrum white light, and a holder that you can put the filter in front of the bulb, and it shouldn't be expensive. It shouldn't be a $300 or $400 freaking item. I can tell you that right now. And that's really my annoyance on a lot of this stuff. Otherwise, I think people should experiment with this, because I think it's not just about, you got to think of color, the spectrums of the color as frequencies. The highest frequency is actually the purple, then it goes to the blue, and then it goes to the green, and then the orange, and the yellow. Then the yellow, then the orange, and the red. And actually, some of these things are even associated with the zodiac signs too, because they're saying that, maybe there's a little bit of truth to a lot of different things that seem crazy. And I have to put it to you this way. It's not like these are axioms that these things are always going to work every freaking time. Now, in the case of Rife technology, I think it probably would, but this might be some beneficial stuff to use, but I would never recommend anybody to buy something that was expensive. I've been researching. I found cheaper and cheaper stuff online through some of the, like I said, through the theaters, the stages, the stage production lighting. That is less than half the money of a lot of places that are into these alternative health gimmicks and stuff. I call them. Maybe they're not gimmicks, but I think they're overpriced for what you're getting. But I think there's stuff out there that's even cheaper than that, and I'll see if I can find, what is the cheapest. Now, it's not something I'm going to get a cut of, or I'm recommending it because, I get a cut of it or something like that. Anything I recommend on this channel is something, let me put it this way. I look for the big word called value. I want something that's good, that's going to last, that's not going to break. And yet it's not maybe not the most high-end, highfalutin thing out there, but is it practical? Does it work, in my opinion? Yeah. But as far as this goes, this technology, I think there's a lot more to it. I was pretty much floored by this little revelation on this. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the hardcore scientific studies on this, but considering I got it from sources that I think are good, and it wasn't one of those online websites or anything like that, because there's a lot of garbage on there, I think it's probably correct. But sometimes when you see these things in ancient cultures, not only in the Chinese cultures, but, again, I want to mention that the Roman emperors, and this was never mentioned in any book I ever saw on color light therapy or chromotherapy, the Roman emperors, the color of the Roman emperors was always purple. Not red, not orange, not yellow, not green, not blue, but purple. And that goes with the highest chakra, which goes with the office of the Roman emperor, the highest office of the empire, right? The emperor himself. That piqued my interest too. But I think there's a little more to this technology, because it's not. You don't want to think of light as simple light. Like, there's light. Okay, there's light. I turn the light on. There's light outside. When the sun's out. There's light from the reflection of the moon and the stars, right? There's light from the headlights on my car, for crying out loud, right? But, when you're thinking about the spectrum, that visible light, there's a frequency involved. There's a different, unique frequency involved in each one of those spectrum. And we do know that there is frequencies in the body. There's frequencies of microorganisms. There's frequencies that affect our health or well-being. And there's frequencies that can even destroy microorganisms, as was found out back in the 1930s. A definite freaking buried science. And also, I pointed out in other videos multiple times about George Lakowski and his multi-wave oscillator using frequencies in gigahertz and gigahertz that helped extend life by raising the frequencies, cellular frequencies and energies of the cells. I personally like that approach better than destroying microbes, basically strengthening the body and let the body figure out what microbes need to be destroyed. I personally like that approach better, but maybe you could do this. And Nikola Tesla, like I said, he had a type of high electrical shower that you would stand on the plates, and it would make your body and skin clean and recharge your body system and kill the microbes at the same time. I mean, this was stuff he developed back in the late 1890s. I mean, don't hold your breath on freaking Mr. Yo-Yo scientist paid by the government to freaking come out with this stuff, because it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. But, I have a very practical mind on this type of stuff, and I'm I can't really tell you for sure what the exact answers are, but I look at it like this. If you're going to experiment with this stuff, well, at least this stuff I try to look for the best value on things. I look for when I was using the zappers, I was using a Parazapper I thought was the best. The Spooky 2 was the best miniature rife generator, and other things I got, magnetic neodymium magnets and things. I don't know if it's going to be the panacea of life or whatever the hell it is, but if you're experimenting with them, I definitely am not a person I wanted anybody to get ripped off on anything, and I don't have any affiliation with anything I ever, talk about on this. Right now, I am looking and leaning. I don't want to make a recommendation right now, but if you want to jump on this technology, right now it looks like vendors who sell stage lighting and actually sell chromotherapy stage lighting are probably give you the best bang for the buck. That's what I've been able to determine right now, but I think there's going to be better deals that I might be able to turn up, and I'll put a future video out on that if I find something that's an extremely good deal. And I look at this as experimental technology, but maybe we already know how. So that's been a big question of married couples. How do we know if we want a boy or we want a girl, or whatever? Or we had two boys, we want a girl this time, or we had two girls, we want a boy this time. How are we going to make it this way? Well, maybe the lighting therapy might work for you. So, I mean, this was the main emphasis of the subject, how it's done. The pinkish light on the animals actually produced males, and the bluish light produced female litters. Would it work on humans? You know, I would think it would, but I mean, I don't know if you got to be under the light 24 hours a day or what. You know, that's the other caveat to this deal too. But it's an interesting bit of information that I've never seen anywhere, and I just figured I'd put it out.